Hey guys, my name is Vishal and I welcome you all to yet another session by Edureka. In today's session, we would be talking about AWS OpsWorks. Before we get into the details of this particular topic, let us take a look at the offerings of this session. So I would start this session by talking about why AWS DevOps approach is needed. Moving further, we would understand what is AWS OpsWorks and why it is needed. We would also talk about some of its components, and finally, I would finish things off with the demo part where I would give you a walkthrough through this service that is AWS OpsWorks. So I hope this agenda is clear to you guys. So let's not waste any time and quickly get started then. So why AWS and DevOps? Well, I won't be getting into the details of these topics because in my previous sessions, I've talked about both AWS and DevOps in detail. To give you a short explanation, DevOps is a cloud service provider, which is one of the best in the market, which provides you with various computing services, precisely more than 100 services. And then DevOps is the need of the hour approach. And that is why many people wondered as in, could they implement DevOps on top of AWS? And AWS responded with a plethora or a plenty of services that actually catered these needs. So what are these services and why AWS DevOps is a great combo? Well, AWS provides you with various services like EC2 and various container services, which actually let you go ahead and spawn certain instances. Now, these instances are nothing but your virtual machines, on top of which you can actually go ahead and host different kind of applications. You can put in different kind of data. So instances are a must. And what these instances do is they readily scale up and scale down to your needs. So something that is very suitable for a DevOps approach. Now, when you talk about DevOps, you're talking about continuous integration and deployment. So to carry out these processes, you need these elastic or these scalable instances. So that need is served when you talk about AWS instances. Moving further, CloudFormation is something that lets you create templates and lets you create environments which you can use to actually go ahead and host different kinds of applications. So yes, AWS CloudFormation again is a very important part when you talk about DevOps. AWS code pipeline, this thing what it does is it basically lets you create a little pipeline in which you can put in your data. Now this data is built into applications, it is tested several times. It's actually also committed to the repositories that you wish to use. You can do it on GitHub, you can use an in-house repository which is called as AWS code commit. So again, this purpose is served when you talk about actually going ahead, building an application, then deploying the code, testing the code, and a number of other things. CloudWatch, it is a monitoring service that lets you keep track of all the activities that are happening on the platform of AWS. So yes, when you talk about DevOps, everything is taken care of with the help of AWS, at least on the cloud platform terms, if we are talking about it from that perspective. So again, guys, if you are completely new to AWS and completely new to DevOps, please visit our YouTube channel. We have separate stacks for both these topics, and there are so many videos there which basically talk about these topics in detail. I would share the links for these stacks in the description, so do not worry about that. Having said that, guys, this is what AWS DevOps is, and that is why we need it. I mean, these are the reasons why we need AWS DevOps. So let us just move further and try to understand why do you need AWS OpsWorks. Before we talk about this particular point, let us just quickly take a look at the definition of this particular topic so that probably we can relate to the topic in hand much better. That is, once we understand what is AWS DevOps, there might be quite a few people here who might be completely new to these terminologies. So it is important we understand what OpsWorks is so that we can probably relate to the bigger picture as in why do we actually use it. So let's just do that. Let us take a look at the basic definition first. When you talk about the definition, this is what it has to say. It says that it is a configuration management service that helps you build and operate highly dynamic applications and propagate changes instantly. So too many words here. Let me just simplify it for you. Now these days we build so many applications which are built consistently and constantly. So if you think about it from an infrastructure perspective, you might be required to maintain hundreds of servers, different applications on top of it, configure those applications and do n number of activities that you actually would not want to do. Because as a developer or as a business owner, your prime focus is on focusing on the business part and on the development part. So what if you could give these laborious activities to someone else to do it? Wouldn't that be nice? Well, OpsWorks, it exactly does that. I mean, it takes care of the configuration and the management part. And when you talk about this service, it specifically helps you in various DevOps related activities. Like it lets you deploy these codes as well, or these applications as well. You can do that manually, automatically, and in a number of other ways. It lets you load balance your applications. So all in all, it serves quite a few purposes when you talk about DevOps. And when you talk about DevOps, these things can be done by using Chef and Puppet. So what this thing does is, that is AWS OpsWorks, it basically lets you use configurations that support these tools as well. And Puppet and Chef, that is which these individual tools are, they also let you use OpsWorks along with them. So that is what AWS OpsWorks is. Basically, it lets you configure and basically manage various deployment processes and the infrastructure that we're talking about. As I get into the demo part, I would actually give you a deeper explanation as to what you can do with Chef, what you can do with Puppet, and a number of other things. So this is what the basic definition is. Now let us go back and try to understand why AWS Ops works. Now, when you talk about AWS Ops works, let's consider this example. Suppose you have like thousands of servers that are running at a time, something that I talked about a while ago, as in you might be required to work with a number of servers. So in this case, suppose that you have somewhere around 1,000 servers, and probably you're supposed or you're made to deal with changing the properties of certain files on these servers. If you do it manually, actually there would be a lot of laborious activities involved in this task. But if you talk about OpsWorks in particular, what it does is it lets you automate this process, and it lets you do this task parallelly on n number of services. So thus it helps you save a lot of time. And apart from that, it gives you following features. It is highly productive, it is highly powerful, it is easy to use, and it starts easily. It is highly flexible, and it is secure as well. The plus point of it is you can run any kind of application on top of it. So that is not your concern. I mean, you do not have to worry about the kind of applications that you can run on top of it. Since you can run any kind of application, all you have to do is focus on the configuration part, then let go of the worry where you focus on what kind of application should I deploy. So guys, this was the reason why you should actually go ahead and learn AWS OpsWorks. We've already looked into the details of what is AWS OpsWorks. Let us take a look at certain components that are important to this particular service. So following are the components that this service focuses on. You have stacks and layers, then you have instances, applications, and cookbooks. Let me throw in some light on each of these terms individually. Stacks and layers. Now, when I talk about building applications, basically you're talking about so many things. I mean, you're talking about code, you're talking about configuration files, you're talking about installations and stuff like that. So all these things have to lie inside a container, right? Inside a box where these things can be managed. So that stack of these resources is called as a stack. I mean, the name remains the same, but that is what it is. And then you have something called as layers. Now, again, these operations that I just talked about, say, for example, you are supposed to install certain softwares. So you need to have a stack or maybe a substack that basically holds in these installation files, right? So that substack is called as a layer. It basically lets you have more classified approach towards the resources that you have. So a subclassification inside a stack is called as a layer. And then you have instances. I've talked about instances already, as in what it is. Again, if you talk about computation, I mean, you would be carrying out the operations that I just mentioned, right? So you need some source that lets you perform all these computations and a platform to perform these computations on top of these applications, right? So that platform is something that is provided to you by the instances that are there. Now, there are various types of instances. Let us not get into the details of those. But yeah, these instances, think of them as platforms on top of which you can put in your applications and carry out computation. Then you need certain applications that you can put on top of it. So these applications, again, you can build those on your own. You can use custom applications depending upon your need. AWS or most of the cloud platforms that you would be using, they would give you these options where you can have your customizations, or you can actually go ahead and use the default applications that are there on these cloud platforms. Specifically with AWS, it is definitely true. Cookbooks. Now, what are cookbooks? Again, you have various configuration files, or basically files that tell your service what to do. I mean, what kind of operation do you want your service to perform? So this piece of information is a configuration file. And when you talk about a cookbook, basically it is a collection of recipes. Recipe, again, is nothing but a script, basically, or your configuration file. So if you have n number of such configuration files, which basically tell your service what to do, you can club them together so that you form a cookbook. Just like our normal routine cooking practice, right? If you talk about a cookbook, it would have a number of recipes and each recipe would tell you what different dish to cook, right? So if you apply this logic into OpsWorks, or basically if you apply this logic into configuration process, that is what recipes and cookbooks would be like. So yeah, guys, we've talked about all these things. We've talked about stacks and layers. We've talked about instances. We've talked about applications and cookbooks. Now let us just go ahead and switch into the console part and try to see what AWS OpsWorks have to offer to us or has to offer to us. So guys, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've switched into the AWS console. This is where we would be getting a walkthrough to AWS OpsWorks. Now, before we get into the details of AWS OpsWorks, for people who are completely new to Amazon Web Services, AWS, what they can do is they can actually go ahead and create a free tier account here. What AWS does is it gives you some of the or most of the services for free so that you can actually go ahead and practice these services. Now, when I say for free, these services are available to you for 1 complete year, and there is certain limitation cap on it where you can use these services for certain limits only. So what I would suggest is you actually go ahead and log into the AWS website, this particular website, or you can just go ahead and search for AWS free tier in any browser, and you would be redirected to this page. There you'd have to go ahead and sign in or probably sign up. And once you create an account, you would be having all these services made available to you. What is the process for signing up? You have to put in certain details like why do you want to use this account? Who are you by profession? And what is your intention of using this account? Plus, you'd have to enter in your credit card or debit card details because there is a certain cap on these services. And if you exceed those limits, you would be charged post that. But again, the limits are more than enough if you wish to get started. So I would suggest that you put in your details for your credit card and debit card and you won't be charged. You can stay rest assured about that as well. So guys, once you do have an account, you can actually go ahead and use the services that AWS has to offer to you. In this case, we would be going through OpsWorks. Now, when you actually move into AWS console, you have this find services option where you can put in the details of the service that you want to use. In this case, it is OpsWorks, right? So it would be there in the suggestion here for your use. If you've recently used it, it would be shown in that option as well, or in the recently visited services as well. So you can visit it either ways. Let us just click on this icon. Today, for some reason, the internet is a little slow, so few things are taking longer than normal. Now, if you've opened or used this service for the first time, or you're using this service for the first time, this is what would appear to you, a fresh screen for a beginner. I'm purposefully using this account because I want you all to see how it looks from a fresher's perspective. So guys, once you do that, this is where you have all the stuff that you can do. Now, in the previous part of this session, I've discussed about stuff like stacks. I've talked about recipes and cookbooks, right? So that is what we are going to do. We are going to go ahead and create a stack. We are actually going to go ahead and deploy an application and see how it works using AWS OpsWorks. So as you can see, if you are a fresher, you can actually go ahead and start fresh. With this, what it does is you create your first stack. And if you already have certain instances running and you wish to use those, you can register those instances as well. But for now, let's just go ahead and start fresh. So we get to see what all can be done. So let's say add your first stack. So guys, you're given these options. As I've already mentioned, when you talk about AWS OpsWorks, it works with two services or two tools rather, that is your Chef and Puppet in a very good manner. Initially, it started on a great scale when you talk about Chef in particular. I mean, it was very easy to integrate with Chef, that is integrating AWS with Chef rather. And now the fact that Puppet is trending these days, you can actually go ahead and use Puppet as well. If you talk about adding a stack, you can actually go ahead and add a sample stack where a Node.js application would be deployed to the discussed instance or to the instance that you'd be creating. And if you talk about the other options, you can actually go ahead and bring in your existing cookbooks and use certain community cookbooks as well that are there for offerings when you talk about AWS in particular. To do that, you'd have to use Chef 12 stack. And in case if you wish to use built-in cookbooks for the applications and deployments, you can switch to Chef 11 stack as well. So guys, we're going to stick with the basic application for now. Once you click or select this option, A Node.js app will be set up to help you explore the features and configuration options of AWS OpsWorks stacks. For example, layers, lifecycle events, and etc. So let's just go ahead and create one. What operating system do you want? Let's stick to any. I mean, we are not going to go ahead and explore these instances or these operating systems. So let it be Linux for now. It does not matter to any great extent. And say create a stack. So guys, these are the 5 processes that would happen. It would create a stack. The name would be my sample stack. A cookbook repository would be created basically, that is using Chef. A layer would be created. Node.js app server would be its name. Then probably a recipe would be assigned to basically using which you can actually go ahead and deploy your application. And finally, you'd add an instance layer as well, or you'd add an instance to the layer rather. So once you do that, let's just go ahead and say explore the sample stack. So all these things have happened, guys. Now, as you can see, you have a sample stack basically. So if you wish to explore, you can actually go ahead and go through these options as well. The important thing that you need to do is actually you need to go ahead and start an instance. So let's just say start the instance. So guys, this is the process which takes a long time. Meanwhile, let us just go through certain basics. If we are able to bide the time so that the instance gets launched in that duration, I mean, so basically there is a server that is getting installed here. So it's obviously gonna take a longer while. So meanwhile, let's talk about certain terms and try to understand those. If we still have enough time, then I would probably pause this session meanwhile the application gets or the instance and the server gets up and running. So let us try to take a look at certain pointers when you talk about these stacks. Probably this is the layer that is there, which we have. We've talked about layers already. So again, if you come to this particular location, it would give you the information about the stuff that we are talking about. Let me just click on this thing. See, there's the information here, as in what is a stack, what does it mean, layers, as in what are the layers that you're using, what a layer is, and stuff like that. So if you wish, you can add more layers as well. Instances, this is where you'd have information about your instance, which is getting booted right now or booting up right now. This is the IP address that we can use. Then there are 2 types of instances, guys. You have your time-based instance and you have your load-based instance where you can customize the way your application needs to be handled. If you wish to spawn in more instances or if you wish to give in certain instructions for your instance to react to, you can set in certain time variable parameters. And if you wish to load balance better, you can actually go ahead and load balance your instances as well. If you click on this icon, no load balance based instances is what it is saying. You can actually go ahead and add those. You can edit the configuration for the same as well. Now this is the information as in what happens with a load based instance. Then you have your time based instance as well. Same for it as well. The information as in how it works. Deployments. This is something that we're going to do once instance is up and running. So we should wait for that. Monitoring, this is where you get all the information about what has happened once the application server is up and running. Let us just go ahead and see whether the instance is up and whether it's running. It is still booting up, guys. So I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of wait for this particular activity to happen. And once it does happen, I would re-continue the discussion. Okay, booting process is done. Now it is running the setup. So I'm hoping that it's gonna happen quicker. So guys, there you go. The Node.js server is up and running and you can see the status is online. The instance that we are using right now is T2 medium. Now there are different families of instances that you use which serve different purposes. Certain instances are memory specific, certain are general instances. If I'm not wrong, T2 family instances are burstable instances which actually work at some reserved capacity in the initial phase, say somewhere around 20%. And if you require more computation, they burst into that mode where you can actually go ahead and utilize that instance 100%. Now, this is for cost saving purposes, but that is not the discussion for today. Let us just go ahead and see what we have here in store. Now, our instance is up and running, so let us move ahead and get into the deployment part. Let's just say deploy an application, deploy this particular application. Yep, command, deploy, comment, sample for today. There you go. And I say deploy. So yeah, this application would be deployed to our instance basically. So again, guys, the reason we use ops to work is what it does is it kind of simplifies all these processes. Now, this is where we've actually gone ahead and created a very simple application and we've deployed it. Again, as I've already mentioned, you have the freedom of choosing the instances that you use, choosing the application that you want to bring in, and you can actually go ahead and use all the recipes and cookbooks that you have. I mean, you can use configurations and instructions that you want to use that suit your need better. And your applications can be large, they can run on any kind of platform. So all these restrictions won't be there once you actually go ahead and deploy your application, or once you actually do go ahead and decide to use AWS OpsWorks. So yes, it is a complete service. Once this thing is up and ready, we can see what has happened. So the application is deployed, and if you wish to take a look at what has happened, the reason it took this long was these were the number of operations that were performed. See, you can take a look at the log. This is all that has happened, and this is what it has gone through, these many processes. So you can understand the amount of time it has taken. And when we say automate certain processes, it helps you take care of these many processes, guys. So yep, again, so if you wish to actually go ahead and see what has happened, you can kind of move to your instances. This is where instance lies, right? So you can come here and kind of move to your IP. Now I've clicked on that IP and this is what I've got. You've successfully just deployed your first app with AWS OpsWorks. So this is it, guys. I mean, we've understood how OpsWorks works, what all it does, and at least the basic part. One more important thing that you need to notice, guys, when you do actually go ahead and create these applications, when you actually go ahead and do all these things, you should understand one thing, that these things might cost you. So it is very important that you actually go ahead and clear all the stuff that is there with you. So it is very important you stop your instances. It is very important you delete your applications that are there with you. So first and foremost, it is important you delete your application. Once you've deleted the application, guys, your next process is to actually go ahead and stop and terminate the instance that you're using, and you would be good to go, guys. So once you've deleted the instance, once you've deleted the application, then go ahead and delete your stack from here, because you might be charged otherwise. So ensure that you carry out these practices. As far as this session goes, guys, I believe I've given you the required information that you were looking for. If you do have any queries, you can put those in the comment section and we would be more than happy to reply to you at the earliest possible. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated on such videos for these kind of topics. So I would be resting my session here and here, guys. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!